Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Creative City Show here on 1030 The Voice with me, your host, Zach Yentzer. As every day, Monday through Friday, we share the stories and strategies of the people and ideas shaping Tucson's future. And along the way, we envision, we debate, we discuss the issues and themes critical towards getting us to that future in a way that is creative and innovative, thus the Creative City Show. And I'm looking forward to today's 2-hour show. It is packed from now into the very end. Here in the first hour, we'll be with George Howard, the founder and president of the Tucson Musicians Museum, and so much more. We'll get into that. If I put the whole bio in, I would spend most of this segment talking about George rather than talking to George, and that's not what we want to do. So we'll get into that in a bit. And then my friend Jordan Rothenberg will be on with a view of Tucson from the outside. Zyra Olivier, leading the Tucson Sanctuary City Movement, will be on to talk about that in the 11 o'clock hour. And then we'll wrap up with Arizona Senator Martha McSally, who will be calling in to talk about the water infrastructure bill she is co-sponsoring. Today is a full show. But to get us kicked off, George Howard has been involved in playing the blues and R&B for over 25 years, has worked with a lineup of blues greats. We'll hear more about that. And you've been recently inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame, the Tucson Music Awards Hall of Fame, and you are the president and founder of the Tucson Musicians Museum. In the arena of blue and R&B, George Howard is considered in the heavyweight division. I don't know if you wrote that or somebody else did, but that sure sounds good.
Tough for me to write stuff about myself.
George Howard, it's a pleasure to be with you in studio. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your time in Tucson and being involved in the music scene and blues and R&B for 25 years and who you've gotten to work with. The list is long.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have been accepted by, basically my heroes and mentors in the music business. My first gig here in Tucson was 1970. And then I went on tour with John Lee Hooker, played with Albert King, Albert Collins, Bo Diddley, Johnny Lang, a lot of the blues guys. 35 years pretty much I was just on the road with the blues guys, played internationally, and it was most enjoyable for me. It was great.
That's incredible. Did you grow up listening to the blues and R&B, playing? Were you a musician
really
from the
funny.
very beginning, or?
I had a friend of mine that had gone over to Germany, and he had moved back to the States, and this is like, when Herman's Hermits and all those guys are playing and stuff, which I never really was into. And then he says, hey, I joined this record club, and you got to hear these guys are fabulous. So he had, some Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, and I just fell in love with it. I just, wow, who are these guys, which later everybody found out that that's what the Stones and Yardbirds, that's who they were playing, was the blues. And not a lot of people understand and realize that there's only two true American art forms, and that's blues and jazz. And that's where all the music comes from. And so when you hear a lot of guitar players and the other guys that are looked up upon, they always revert back to the masters of the blues for their influence. And I kind of fell into that category as well. Mostly the people I played with were very grateful and very patient, but they were legends. And so the music that they provided was, it's our national treasure. So I found it in myself to keep that legacy moving forward.
What has blues and R&B? What has been that music scene in Tucson? What has that meant to Tucson?
Well, it's growing. Excuse me. When I first was playing here in Tucson, there wasn't much of a blues scene. Tucson's been primarily a rock kind of town, and so that's when I put a blues band together, and then joined a few other blues bands that had come to town. But it's growing more and more. Um, my friend Harmonica Mike, back in the day, we were instrument in starting the Blues Society here in Tucson. I kind of walked away from it because then I started working with my friend Terry Glassman. He owned a bar called Terry and Zeke's. So I helped him book a lot of my friends that were coming in, blues artists that were coming in from Phoenix. And Tucson was like a little gas stop. But I mean, we got the best. I mean, we had, Coco Taylor, Albert King, Otis Rush, Robert Cray. He was a good buddy of mine. So all the people that I knew that were coming to Phoenix would come to Tucson. So that brought a little bit more interest, and people were getting a little more education about the blues and the music. And then, nationally and internationally, it became more popular. So, and it's still going strong today. We still have some great blues bands, and I haven't stopped playing blues. I mean, I'll always be a blues guy. But I've just incorporated rhythm and blues because there's not a lot of R&B bands up here, and that's as important as blues, because that's a derivative of the blues. You have R&B, and then there's basically jazz. Jazz and blues was considered R&B. That's what the Billboard magazine kind of named it. Prior to that, it was just race music, is what they called it. So
really, that was the term.
Yeah, it was race music, and back in the day, they only played it after midnight.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's a circuit in the South they call the Chitlin Circuit, and that's where most of the black musicians would play. It was just in that circuit, like in the South.
Really?
Until other people, like Elvis and people like that got stuff from other Afro-American songs and artists, and kind of crossed over.
Does blues and R&B in Tucson still derive artists and influence from the Phoenix area or nationally, or are we growing internally that part of our music scene? Because our music scene is it's a definite part of Tucson. We have one.
Yes.
But like you said, it's been more rock. So where are we at today now?
Today it's a lot more diverse. And believe it or not, we are number 7 in the top music cities in the United States.
Number 7.
We're number 7.
For our entire music scene.
Yeah.
Or for...
In the United States.
Really?
Yeah, we are number 7.
Do you know what 5, 6, and 8 are? Well, what's kind of the league that
we're
in?
There's obviously New York, LA, Atlanta, Memphis, places like that have been, in New Orleans, that have been established for many years. But
that's good company to be in.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
But we've got incredible musicians here. I have the utmost respect for everybody, what they do. Culturally, this city's grown, so we've got a lot more music that we didn't have here before, like, the taiko drummers from Japan. We've got, more Africans that have moved here, so there's more of the African taste of what's going on.
That's true.
And, we've got, other people that are coming from further south in Mexico, down in Guatemala, and it's just an amazing melting pot of culture and music here. So Tucson has grown extensively, over the years.
In our second segment, we've got 2 segments together. I think I want to highlight that as probably our eventual segue to the second segment of the Tucson Musicians Museum.
Sure.
Because you get to not only be an artist and be in the music environment in Tucson, but you get to curate really this story of Tucson's musicality. And so I'm looking forward to kind of diving into that in the second segment. Blues Hall of Fame, Tucson Music Awards Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But what's the criteria for that?
I guess just longevity, musicianship, you
Okay.
know, and the general public's opinion. Um, I've just been around for a while and pretty stuck to my guns. And that's kind of like one of the reasons why I started the Tucson Musicians Museum. I was totally honored. As a matter of fact, when when I got inducted to the Arizona Blues Hall of Fame, I was thinking about just giving it up for a while. You know, I just lost my mom, and my dad was pretty shook up about it. So I actually took 3 years off just to hang with my dad and get him through the process of grieving. But all these signs basically kept coming up that for me not to quit. You know, I was running into people on the road that I had no idea who they are, but they knew I was and said, I got your records and we've been trying to get in touch with you to play here and there. And you know, I did a few events, maybe three of the 3 years that I wasn't playing. But it it was definitely a time for me to, you know, just kind of regroup and look at, you know, what was going on. But when I got back to Tucson with my dad, I found out that I'd been accepted, so felt great about that. Then Tammy's Hall of Fame, and I felt that there were other people more deserving than me. I was honored, but I was going, wow, why? I know guys that I grew up with that I think that should get it. So it's one of the reasons why I started the Tucson Musicians Museum for education for the community. Understand that you know, some people like Laszlo Varese, who is the conductor here, Tucson Symphony Orchestra. He goes over to Europe and he's like mob, like Mick Jagger. You know, but when he comes home, people don't know
Yeah.
who he is. You know.
So why is that? Why don't we know who we have in this city? What's the missing link?
I think it's mainly people understanding who they are and what value they have. You know, Europeans have always been into American music a little bit more than the
Americans have been into American music.
Exactly. You know, so sometimes it takes it to go away and then
Okay.
come back home and appreciate it. You know, just like the blues.
Yeah.
You know, the blues was here, started here, but it took the Stones and Yardbirds to, you know, just electrify it and make it louder. And wow, you know, they think it's something new. It's like, no. I mean, look who their heroes are. They're the people that were the blues people.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, you know, it's just a matter of, I think, information.
Yeah. Is there, I mean, certainly one of the reasons why I started and continued this show was to be a piece of, you know, the storytelling in Tucson around these things that don't often get a lot of press. And but I still wonder why. You know, I mean, Tucson is just, Tucson's narrative is least known by Tucsonans.
Yes.
You know, where we don't know about ourselves. We really, really don't.
Right.
To a large degree, we think we do.
Yeah.
But we don't. And this is, I mean, and I say that with the knowledge that I didn't know about any of this until you sat down with me 15 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
I'm in that category. There's no better than, you know, better than somebody else going on here. I just am trying to figure out that missing link.
Yeah, and again, it's the categories too, and where we're headed. You know, live music is not as popular with the younger generation as DJs now. So the history and the live musicians that are like that just aren't either being seen or they're touring. They can do better out of town, but. You know, more and more people are understanding what's going on, and but the great thing is just all the diversity that's in town, and you know, there's cliques, people that know cliques here in Tucson that are associated with other people that, you know, like in the TSO, Tucson Symphony Circle. Then you've got the kitchen musicians and Arizona Blues Hall of Fame, and you know, all these diverse. Choices of music and genres, so there's like little pockets, you know.
Yeah.
So those people know about them, but the community doesn't unless they happen to go out to a big event and hear them. because it's not really a lot of the local stuff's not played.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, a lot on radio. I think the local community radio station's maybe the only one that does local music, so that could be a factor too. Exposure, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, Tucson is amazingly diverse, and we have great musicians here that are respected.
That's amazing. When we come back from the break, I want to ask George Howard, we haven't even gotten to this part yet, the president and founder of the Tucson Musicians Museum, a blues and R&B icon in Tucson. And as he just mentioned, other people decided that you were that, so I can say that, a blues and R&B icon in Tucson, the number 7 music city in the United States. When we come back, I want to ask George Howard what blues and R&B, especially the kind of the culture of it in Tucson, says about our community. Right? It had to be popularized across the ocean. But what does blues and R&B say about our American tapestry and our Tucson tapestry? And then the Tucson Musicians Museum, I want to hear more about that. And Tucson, if you want to talk to George Howard, you have a question about Tucson's music environment and ecosystem here in Tucson, 790-2040 is your live line call-in number to talk with us for a few more minutes in studio. As we head to our break here on 1030 The Voice, welcome back. I am with George Howard, blues and R&B icon in Tucson, over 25 years in the city, recently inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame and the Tucson Music Awards Hall of Fame. He's the president and founder of the Tucson Musicians Museum and a heavyweight in the arena of blues and R&B. Welcome back, George. Thanks for your time. This is a real honor this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me. I
Yes.
really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We have so much to get into. We got into your history, a little bit of the history of blues and R&B. I want to take this the second part of our interview and talk about the Tucson Musicians Museum. But we have a caller on our live line. Mike, thanks for calling in. You're with George and I here in the studio. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Yeah, I really enjoy the show. George is being modest. I've seen his band several times. They're great, and there have been a lot of musicians that have spun off from George's band that have become really good local musicians here in Tucson, like Brian Dean, great guitar player if you want to see a great blues player, and we have a lot of really good blues players here in town.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I'm just honored to have played with these people. You know, everybody that I've played with in the past has always been an honor, and the love of sharing music with people. There's nothing greater. But thank you so much for your support and encouragement and things like that. I appreciate that, Mike. Thanks.
I love it. Yeah, you are very modest, but we're here to be your hype men. So, between Mike and I, and anybody else who wants to call in, 790-2040. We're talking with George Howard. So George, I have a couple questions for you, and to get a little bit more details from you in the remaining time that we have. First of all, what does blues and R&B tell us about our kind of our American story and our Tucson story?
Well, I think the American story of blues and R&B comes from we all know that everything started from the blues. And when they added a little bit of jazz riffs to the blues, that became more towards the rhythm context to rhythm and blues.
Okay.
So you've got a little bit of jazz and you have a little bit of blues. Ike Turner was one of our forefathers for crossing over into R&B. And you had, Richard and people like that, where it became more popular internationally as far as R&B developed. And the same thing here locally. You have people that, love Motown. A lot of us were conceived on Motown music,
It's one way to put it.
You get some Al Green on, it's all over. But a lot of people like hearing it, and if there's a support group of musicians that can provide that, then you got a good following. But it's an era of music that mainly baby boomers, but also some of their kids that that grew up listening to their parents' music are basically coming back to that.
Wow.
So I think it's just people realizing the combination. It is a staple in America. It's just, having the support to keep that alive. And that's why I think that it's important that I'm in the position that I am now playing R&B. But I'm still playing blues. But R&B is, it's just important because it's a development of the blues. And then, like Muddy Waters said, the blues had a baby and they named it rock and roll. So but it's all from the blues.
I love it. Our producer Bob has a past history in as being a DJ, and his music education is on point. I know he's digging this right now because you are you know what you're talking about. So the Tucson Musicians Museum is really, it seems to me, just from talking to you, kind of an opportunity for you to really curate this conversation. And to really celebrate both current and past music history in Tucson. What was your goal with founding and now serving as the president of the Tucson Musicians Museum?
Well, first of all, like I said prior, I felt very humbled that I was given a few kudos, some awards and things, and I thought there were more deserving people. So I just wanted to educate the community about, people that have sacrificed and have exceeded as a musician here in Tucson and nationally. So the criteria for members to get into the Tucson Musicians Museum is that they had to lived here, played internationally, nationally, but most important, community service for no less than 25 years. That in turn, the community knows that these are quality people that are more than just musicians. They are part of the community and give back and want to help your fellow man or other fellow musician. That in turn, these musicians are mentors to our kids, because I feel myself as a musician, we owe it to give back to the kids. That's our future. If we don't teach them, they're not going to know the real story. Everybody's going to think that, what's happening now that's the way it's always been. So we have the education for the kids so they understand music, the whole concept of it, not just playing music, but we want to teach them, how to manage themselves as well. And part of our curriculum that we have out for some of our kids that are being taught by the mentorship program is diversity in other music. They'll start out in the blues, then they'll go to maybe some mariachi music, and then they may go to some Japanese music or a different culture, so they understand the importance and great feeling from communication of music. It's like an unspoken language. Which also sparks their interest in maybe the culture of that music. So they're getting into that aspect of it. And then there's the other factor of being a kind of clearinghouse musically for the community, other businesses and nonprofits that are looking for entertainment. We have the best in multi-genres, everything from Native American, a bagpipe player, blues, R&B, reggae, gospel, anything a kid would want to learn. We have mentors there to help them. Once a year, we induct new members, and we always feature our kids that we've been working with, so people can understand, where their money's going to and how the kids are improving and what they sound like. On our 10th year anniversary, prior to that, I had gone out to New Orleans, and spoke with the community music youth coordinator out for their outreach program, and told her that I would love to have an interest to work with them for our kids. So we brought in the Preservation Hall Jazz All-Stars. They played, and she came with them to hear our kids and was totally blown away. And to me, it opens up another opportunity because they're international, as well as our kids would be able to go to New Orleans and learn from the Preservation Hall Jazz guys or any other kind of music that program that they're involved in, which is all over the world. So we have a possibility, to send our kids to China if we get sponsorship for them to learn that culture and music.
Right.
So we're expanding more and more about the opportunities for kids. We want to have always a spot for them to play, get them out in the community to play to captured audiences, maybe rest homes, hospitals, things like that, where people don't have a chance to hear music. So we'd like to bring it to them. So, and that's the community aspect of the museum. So we kind of want to be a hub for the community, but mainly our kids. We want to educate our kids, help them out, get them on their feet so they can have their own voice, and give them choices. Let them know, hey, do you want to write? You want to perform?
Right.
Do you just want to record? These are the choices in music that you can, do.
Right.
But the reality is, it's a tough business.
Yep.
And it's hard, but it's so soulfully rewarding.
Yes.
There's nothing on the planet like it.
Yes. George Howard, blues and R&B icon in Tucson, the president and founder of the Tucson Musicians Museum. We are live on YouTube Live. If you search 1030 The Voice on YouTube, you can watch this conversation live as well as listen to it. So you can listen to it by streaming at kvy.com. You can listen on your AM dial at 1030, or you can watch on YouTube Live, where I just pointed to that at 1030 The Voice. Search that in YouTube. As we finish up today, George Howard of the Tucson Musicians Museum, you've described really the breadth of what the museum does. How can Tucsonans experience it? Is it a physical location? Is it venues? Does it kind of move around? What's the best way for Tucson to experience this?
We are located at the Tucson Convention Center, 260 South Church.
Awesome.
And we are on basically the two floors where you would take the elevators and escalators down to the arena. There's photographs and bios of all of our members there. Again, like I said, we have an induction ceremony. So this year will be September 29th, 7 to 9 at the TCC. We'll have an induction ceremony. Our kids will play. Our new inductees will perform as well. We've got an amazing sculptor artist, Jeffrey Parrish, that's going to be unveiling his sculpture, which if you check it out on Google, Jeffrey Parrish sculpture, it's incredible work. He basically takes musical instruments and makes them into an object. Like he's got a motorcycle that's a bass fiddle and all these other instruments, but it's a motorcycle.
Crazy.
Really. So it's very exciting to start putting a little bit more work into the museum, because most of our money has gone to the kids. But come out and see it. It's a wonderful event. We'll have a live auction where we'll be auctioning off a autograph guitar from Kenny Wayne Shepherd. So any guitar players out there, this would be a good chance to get an autographed guitar from Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And again, our kids will play, and you'll get a chance to see the community. It's kind of like our local Grammy Awards.
Okay.
Basically.
Wonderful. And if someone's driving or working and maybe they couldn't write that down, they can go on your website and find that information?
Yes, they can go to www.tucsonmusiciansmuseum.org.
Perfect.
We're getting apps, so people want to buy tickets on from their phone, they'll be able to do that. And Yeah, we were looking forward to our 13th year,
Incredible.
and we've changed a lot of kids' lives through music.
It's exciting.
Our poster child, a while back, was homeless for a while.
Okay.
So we got him into a living space. We got him a bass fiddle because he was part of the junior strings. And he got a full-blown scholarship to ASU, joined ROTC, and just was invited to be a guest artist at the LA Philharmonic.
Incredible.
A poor kid from South Tucson. So we got a lot of kids' stories like
That's
that,
amazing.
and that's what touches my heart the
Yep.
most, is the fact that our kids can have a chance.
Yep.
They just need to have given the opportunity.
Love it. George Howard, it has been an honor and a pleasure, truly. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you for having
your
me.
time, and appreciate the education you provided me today. Now I get to say that Tucson is the #7 music city in the country, largely due in part to your efforts, and you're changing kids' lives and mentoring our community along the way. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thanks for having me,
Appreciate
and I want to thank all the musicians out there as well, because they're the biggest part of
Yep.
making Tucson what it is. And yeah, come on out to the event on
Yes.
the 29th.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
We'll do this soon. George Howard, thank you so much.
Thank you.
President and founder of the Tucson Musicians Museum and blues and R&B icon in Tucson and beyond. If you missed any of that interview, go to kvoi.com/podcasts or go to iTunes and Google Play Music. Get about 24 hours and you can listen to the full episode, the first 40 minutes of this hour there, and catch up on anything you missed of my interview with George Howard. When we come back on the show, we'll be with Jordan Rothenberg talking about a view of Tucson from the outside. Are you intrigued? I am. Come on back. 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Tucson, welcome back to the Creative City Show here on 1030 The Voice with me, your host, Zach Yentzer. We have a full show for you today. We're only a quarter of the way through it. It is gangbusters here today, just back to back great conversations. We just wrapped up with George Howard, R&B and blues icon in Tucson. There's no two ways about it. Founder and president of the Tucson Musicians Museum. The best part is he's a great person. He really is. Just really enjoyed at a human level my interview with George Howard. We'll get to the guest this segment in a moment, but 11 o'clock kicks off with Zyra Livier, who leads the Tucson Sanctuary City movement. And I've met few people who are neutral on this topic. You're either really for it or you're really against it. And I just wanted to have a 40-minute sit-down with the organizer to talk details, talk policy, talk about it, and hopefully we'll all learn something and be able to contribute our thoughts and concerns and what we value or not about it. So that's going to be a good conversation. And then 11:45, stay tuned. Arizona Senator Martha McSally will call in to talk about the water infrastructure bill she is co-sponsoring. But before we get to any of that, Jordan Rothenberg is in the studio with a view of Tucson from the outside. Jordan, glad we could carve this time out. You have a great face for radio. I'm glad you're here.
Zach, great to be here. Thanks for carving out some time for me on short notice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners how we met.
So we met last year.
Yeah.
I was working for an organization out of Boulder, Colorado, where I lived, Techstars, the worldwide network that helps entrepreneurs succeed. And we had put out a call for proposals, kind of like Amazon HQ2 style, to host a series of unsummits. And these are going to be kind of an unconference where we bring together the entrepreneurial community, the startup scene, and really start, working together towards the future of what this community could be about. And of all the applications I got, the one in Tucson really stood out. And so we absolutely had to host one of these unsummits in Tucson. And you had stepped up and were kind of the lead organizer on that effort.
I was voluntold, yes.
Voluntold, yeah. Labor of love.
It was a labor of... No, I definitely wanted to do it.
Yeah.
There were just so many good leaders a part of that.
Totally.
And it happened that I had kind of more margin, more opportunity to kind of step in, take a leading role. But I mean, our common friend Stephanie Bermudez,
oh my gosh,
a common guest on this show, Aaron Gopp, another guest on this show,
yes,
Becky Palick, another guest on this show. We've had all of them on the show one way or another, and great people. So
totally. And actually, Tucson was interesting because I received 2 applications.
That's right.
From Tucson, and both were dynamite.
Yes.
And so immediately it was like, okay, step one, let's make sure these two
That's
groups
right.
are talking, because
Yep.
there's something really
Yep.
special here.
And Herman Urrego. He's been on the show as well.
Herman, hola, if you're listening.
Did we
love you.
Did we miss anybody? Right? I don't want to miss anybody
Ooh,
because we've had Herman, Stephanie, Becky, Aaron, and I. I think it was us 5.
Yeah.
If I'm missing anybody, it's not on purpose. Let me just.
No, it was definitely a team effort.
It's not only live on 10:30 The Voice on radio. It's also streaming live on YouTube Live
Wow.
at 10:30 The Voice. We've got video going. We've got audio going. I have no place to hide, so I have to put out those disclaimers. But definitely check us out on all those platforms. So the reason why I wanted to talk with you today, Jordan, is you fell in love with Tucson.
I did.
Right, picking up from where you just left off.
Absolutely.
2 dynamite applications.
Yep.
You put us together.
Mhm.
You came to Tucson, and we got you.
Yeah.
We got our hooks into
And
you.
I'm hooked, yeah.
And you're here, and you've come. What is it? 3 times now?
My 3rd trip in really less than 9
In
months.
less than 9 months. You're basically a native.
I feel that way. Honestly, I come back, I know people.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's the magic of Tucson.
Yep.
I mean, it really is, and that not to go woo-woo with it. I mean,
Please go woo-woo.
Tucson is a place that there's just something about it that whether you are kicking and screaming or whether you're coming by choice, like Jordan is, you're just drawn in,
Yeah.
and after a while, it becomes home.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
good energy, good people,
Yeah.
good food.
Right. So, anything else about our meeting story? I don't want to cut you short. I think that's about it.
Can we go
right?
vulnerable for a second? You know,
Okay,
there was
sure.
that moment where we were about a week out from the program.
Oh, that's right.
And, you know, it can be hard to mobilize
That's
people
right.
to spend a full weekend
Yep.
participating in a program like this. So we did have that kind of, oh crap moment where
Right.
we weren't sure if we could pull it off.
Right.
And I remember being on a phone call with you. I was walking through an airport in Detroit, and you know, I could hear in your voice that you wanted so badly for this to happen and
Yeah.
to really be proud of the program. And we decided to press onward, and I'm so glad we did, because
Right.
it was, in the end, it was incredible.
Right. Yeah, because we had been talking. I think this relates, so I'll go ahead and bring it up, and I hope
Mhm.
it's okay. We had the way that the program was designed, and I do want to go here because I want to give you credit.
Mhm.
The way the program was designed was for a certain kind of audience.
Yes.
That would have been more statewide.
And more regional
and more
even.
regional
Yep.
even, which was going to be great because we're
Totally.
going to get to introduce people to Tucson. Everything we wrote, everything we did was really pitching Tucson
Mhm.
to ourselves, but to a regional audience.
Mhm.
And so I called Jordan. I said, Jordan, it's not clicking, man. But we've got you at our, you got our back. This is a great program. Why don't we introduce Tucson to ourselves?
Mhm.
Why don't we
I love that.
take this opportunity and bring our local community leaders together, part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and there has been personalities, there's been initiatives,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of diversity and all the pros and cons of that in our entrepreneurship ecosystem. This was a time to bring everybody together and say, look, how do we move forward?
Yeah.
And so I said, Jordan, would you be down? And you said yes.
Absolutely.
Which is a big yes.
Yeah.
Because that was your neck on the line a little bit, and it went really, really well.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to you.
No, I love that. And to Stephanie too. She really stepped up with, her team of Startup Unidos students were there, matching T-shirts, and just everything
It
was
was
so
incredible.
It all came together.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So that's our story, how we got to know each other. But in the way you explain it, what you fell in love with Tucson, you keep coming back. What
Mhm.
about Tucson got you hooked? And then the big idea of this segment together
Mhm.
is that Tucson has an incredible opportunity to embrace the transplants and the
Mhm.
transients. And
Yeah.
in fact, we've had a history
Mhm.
of that. Tucson is unique in that it is more dominantly transplants and transients than even locals.
Sure.
But it's the local environment, that local community that
Mhm.
draws in the transplants and the
Mhm.
transients. So it's this weird combination
Yeah.
of things. But I think we have to continue being that welcoming and
Mhm.
open city to people like yourself who are coming and seeing the city for the first time,
Mhm.
second time, third time, and falling in love.
Absolutely.
We need to be open. We need to be open to that. So what made you fall in love with Tucson? Why do you keep coming back?
Yeah. So I've got 2 ideas that I wanted to share. One is around this idea that you guys have here of why I love where I live, right? The campaign, the stickers, the buttons. And that really resonates with me, and it from the perspective of why I love where you live,
I like
and what
that.
keeps me coming back. I said it before, but really from the moment you land, the energy is just palpable here. The temperature is warm, the people are warm, the tacos are warm.
More things should be cool, it sounds like.
We do need some more. EG's is cool.
There we go.
See, I'm making my way around town.
It's 110 degrees this week, and we need more reasons to be cool.
Yes. Yeah. And every, there's always something. This place is very dynamic, right? It's small and it's quirky, but it's growing and it's changing in, I think, really interesting ways. Everything from just the way that you guys are committed to the arts, just driving and seeing beautiful, massive murals. Like, these are things that you don't see in a lot of places, or other places try to do that, but it doesn't come off as authentic as it does here. It feels like really a fabric and a fiber of the culture. So again, there's always attractions, things to do. I've really, never had a dull moment here. Also, just for the first time, escaped to Mount Lemmon for a day hike and a night of camping.
Nice.
What a gem, just so
Right?
close.
Yep.
And so I'll continue coming back to Tucson to experience and explore more, because there is so much more. And then the other idea is, in my head, I was calling it the continuity of community. So again, I've been here 3 times, and every time I go deeper on a relationship with multiple people. I'm able to show up, and like conversations picked up where they last left off months ago. And there's this excitement to continue to cultivate relationship, and to, maybe it's a little self-serving, like, okay, Jordan's here again, like, when are we going to actually hook him to stay? But at the same time, there's just this genuine, like, hey, here's the project that I'm now working on, or here's what's developed since we last talked. I'd love for you to stop by this new co-working space I'm spinning up, or stop by our office that is now 13 people when it was 4 the last time we talked. So there is this really, again, palpable growth in the startup and tech community, especially, that invites you back in. And I've felt that every time.
Jordan Rothenberg, in previous professional roles, you've had a chance to see a lot of American cities.
Yeah.
A lot of American environments, right? I mean, it would be one thing to have you on the show if you were full-time somewhere and you were just, I love Tucson. It's been a great interview, been cute, been fun, But I think what makes this really impactful, as random and organic as this conversation was, we were texting last night, and you said, hey, I got this window to get together. And I'll go, well, I know where I'll be that window, and it's not near you. How about you come to me? So This is really random and unplanned, but it's so great to see you, Jordan Rothenberg. But you get to see cities from all over the country. Coming into Tucson, you mentioned some things. Is there anything else that is unique and special about Tucson that we take for granted? Right? I'm curious, the things that just, we live here. We know these things. You mentioned murals, you mentioned warmth, you mentioned some of those things. Anything else, real briefly, that is special to Tucson that we should know is special?
Totally. Yeah, no, one that really speaks to me is the collisions that happen, again, organically, of being in a smaller community of people who are active. They're out there doing things. I was on a hike this morning with Stephanie up a mountain, and we ran into somebody that we knew doing the same walk. Similarly, you go anywhere and those collisions happen, and so don't take that for granted, because the layout and everything here is very conducive to that. Sure, the heat is tough, and so people are inside, and so maybe in the summer and the heat of July, it doesn't happen as often.
Right.
But a lot of cities are struggling and trying to create that environment of collision. And that happens, I think, really organically here.
That's cool. Let's tap into some of your past professional experience as well, looking at the kind of tech and entrepreneurship environments in communities. Tucson was listed just this week by a CBRE report. CNBC reported on it as one of, they called it underdeveloped, but in the most positive way possible. In other words, we're right at the surface.
Yeah, fantastic.
We've had a 90% increase in our tech workforce in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And we're up to about 15,000 people now. So that 90% increase is incredible in a 5-year period. I mean, it's really picking up speed. Feels slower to us sometimes than we would like. but
Patience.
it's really picking up speed. What about our tech and innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem here? Same question that we don't know about ourselves, but that from your multi-city experience, you come into Tucson and go, they've got something here and they should know about it.
Yeah. Yeah, two things again come to mind. One is just the breadth of programming. So with any of these tech and startup communities, what's so important is that there are accessible ways for people to slot in, especially when they feel like, ooh, maybe I'm not technical enough, or I'm too technical. I'm coming from a very academic background. I don't know how to get involved with this startup and tech, new age stuff. So having the menu that you do have to be able to plug in, the 10 Wests that happen every year, the startup coffees, all the other things that are ways, again, just to plug in is so crucial to the development of that ecosystem. And I think you guys do that really well. And then also consistency. So again, my job in the past was working with people like yourself, like Stephanie, to use a program like a Techstars Startup Weekend as really a tool for you to then, and a platform for you to use here in Tucson. And a lot of the communities I work with, maybe they do it once or twice. Some have some consistency over the years, but I think that continuity and that consistency that I've seen here in Tucson is what keeps people engaged over time, and they start to notice. And so 15,000 people could easily be 20,000 in no time because there are so many opportunities to get people connected and engaged.
I love it.
Yeah.
We have about a minute and a quarter left. Tucson, I think, because of its history, has to continue and always maintain its identity as a place that welcomes the newcomer.
Yes.
How do we do that well as someone who keeps coming anew again and again, Jordan Rothenberg?
Totally.
Such as yourself.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is having an open mind, right? So, not being sheltered and blocked off to who might be landing in Tucson, whether they're here for a day or a week. You have, as a Tucsonian, you have an opportunity to make that person feel welcome. I think that's a big part of why I keep coming back, is because I really feel like this is a home away from home. And really to, the folks that are transient, sure, they kind of come in and out. But for the folks that are recently transplanting here, and that, make it a point to give that person a really great onboarding experience. Let them know that Tucson has their back and that there's ways to get involved and to grow in the way that they want to, and they'll be an advocate for life.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's confirming, because we're working on those initiatives as we speak of how do we create an onboarding experience at the visitor level.
Yeah.
Jordan Rothenberg, you're welcome anytime to make Tucson your official home. But
Exactly.
until then, it's glad to see you when you're here a few times a year.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming on the interview and sharing your thoughts, and best of luck to you.
Appreciate it. Great seeing you.
Thanks, man. Have
Yeah,
a good one.
keep it up.
Tucson, come on back at the top of the hour for my interview with Zaira Livier about the Tucson Families Free and Together Sanctuary City Initiative. We'll be right back. 10:30 The Voice.